Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Leanne and I love sharing budget-friendly DIYs with you. Now I know everyone is in a different place right now as far as what kind of stuff they're looking for. Some people are like, bring on the fall. Others are like, I'm done with fall. I'm already decorated for fall. I don't need to make anything else. Some people want to see some everyday decor and some people are ready to get into Christmas. So let me know where you're at. This is about what DIYs you're looking for, not necessarily what you're decorating with. I am going to be bringing you some Christmas DIYs here soon. Doesn't mean it's time to put them out, although if you do, no judgment here. I love the Christmas decor, but you got to get started on it early if you're going to make some DIYs, and some people sell stuff. Anyways, we're going to do a little bit of mixture of everything today. Well, not really. I'm not going to be doing anything fall, but I'm going to be doing some reversible houses, and I'm going to show you different ways to decorate them, ways it can be done every day or for some holidays. I'm going to be doing some everyday along with Christmas, but you could certainly do some fall stuff in there, however you want to do it. Anyways, I have jabbered enough. Let's get on to the DIYs. To get started, I've got these little houses from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use two of them, and they are in the like home decor aisle. I have seen them in the past, and I just recently picked these up, so they were not a one and done, which I'm glad. I hope they continue bringing them back. Anyways, I am going to take off the embellishments, and they come off pretty easily. It's just on with some hot glue. I'm scraping it off, and then I'm going to sand everything down to smooth it out. It is not wood. It's like a thick MDF board, but it cleans up pretty easily. So for the first one, I'm going to just paint all of the edges in black paint. I am using the color ink from Waverly chalk paint. Obviously, you can do these in any way you want. I just wanted to give you a few different ideas of ways to style them. Once my paint is dry, we're going to cover the side that had the embellishments, just because I'm just doing it because I know that nothing will be seen through this paper. This is some paper that I have from Hobby Lobby. I think I bought a whole pack of this. So when you get that 50% off, it's a pretty good deal. And I just traced it out, and we're going to cut it out and attach it. I'm going to choose to use a Gorilla glue stick. You could use other things. Now this paper is pretty thick, so it's like a little thicker than other like scrapbooking paper. But anyways, use any adhesive that you want that you find works well for you. You could even just use a hot glue gun along the edges. So smooth that out, and now I've got some music. I'm choosing to use the song Away in a Manger. Don't totally freak out on me for ripping these pages out. This is an old hymnal. It's not like vintage, but it's older, and I have it in my stash for the purpose of crafting with it. So I know some people might have a problem with that. You can also print off, like find a free printable on, on the internet that you can print off. But I just kind of pressed out the edges so I knew exactly where I wanted to place it, because the Gorilla Glue stick is pretty sticky, and it's hard to move once you place stuff down, especially with something thin like this music paper. So I let that dry, and then I'm just using a sanding block to trim off like all of the edges, to clean up all of the edges. And I try to do this on the other side as well, but like I said, that cardstock is pretty thick, so it didn't work super great, but it did ultimately. But my sanding block was not rough enough, so I grabbed some other sandpaper and wrapped it around it. I also thought about just flipping it over and like cutting it with a sharp cutting tool, but anyways, do however you want to do. I think roughed up the edges a little bit, like the black edges that I had painted, just to make sure it was a little bit, not perfect. And then we're going to give everything, both sides and the edges of the, so both sides of the paper and the edges of the paint, a nice coat of Mod Podge. I like to Mod Podge pretty much everything because I just feel like it seals it in. Now I didn't show you wrapping this with twine, and I'm attaching a bow. I'll show you how I do that on the next house. I filmed this part out of order and didn't realize it till afterwards. Anyways, then on the side with Away in a Manger, I'm just pulling out these little wooden stickers. They're from the Dollar Tree. I haven't seen them yet this year, although I'm guessing they're going to come back, but I had them in my stash from the past, and I put a gold star on, and then I decided to put a little coat of Mod Podge just to keep the glitter from going everywhere. So moving on to the next one, I'm painting the edges of this one with white Waverly chalk paint. I still only had to do a one coat,
but I was trying to not get it all over all of the sides because I wasn't for sure where I was going with these, so I tried to stay nice and neat. I did paint one side with the white, and then I decided to cover it up, but I'm so glad I painted it just to make sure nothing would come through. This is more scrapbook paper I have on hand. It's not as thick as the last cardstock stuff. You buy these by the sheet at Hobby Lobby. Trace it out and glue that on, and then I'm going to paint off the edge with, or tape off the edge with my painter's tape because we're going to paint the back side. Like I said, I wasn't totally sure in the beginning where I was going with all of these, so I'm going to give this one coat of the ink paint from Waverly once again to have this side a nice solid black. Once again, once that is all dry, the paint and the paper, you want the paper glue to be dry before you use this sanding technique. I'm sanding off the edges because obviously I didn't trim it exactly, so there was a little bit of extra, and then I'm also going in and sanding down the edges to just kind of make them not look super perfect and kind of sand off any little black paint that had leaked, so to speak. And then I'm going back over the whole thing with Mod Podge once again. There was a little paper that wasn't fully glued down, so I stuck some Mod Podge under that as well. We're just going to get this whole thing sealed in. And then to embellish this one, this is what I did with the last one too. I just didn't show you. I am just using twine. I just cut it with wire cutters because that's what I had closest to me. And I'm burning it off to get off any fuzzies. You see here, fire kind of travels when it's all bunched up. Nobody was harmed in the making of this, but it helps if you stretch it out and don't like burn it as it's all curled up, because that's when the fire will travel. Anyways, I'm going to just wrap that around multiple times. I'm not keeping it super even, but I am only covering a small space on the house, but you can do this however you want or not do it at all. And once I have it wrapped around, I'm just going to tie it on one side, and on this one we're going to make little twine bows, and we're going to hot glue them on both sides. I am just putting them in enough and making sure the tails don't stick over the edge so that when you're looking at it from one side, you can't see the embellishment on the other side. So I hope that that makes sense. If you notice on the, well, on the last one, I only did the bow on one side and then I did a star on the other. I'm sure you did notice that because I showed you and talked to you about it. And then but this one I'm putting the bow on both sides. So just wanting to make sure you can't see it from the opposite side. Sorry, I got tongue-tied. Now this was just a raw piece of wood. It was little in their crafter square area at Dollar Tree. I was excited to find them. I picked up a couple of them. Now the wedges are definitely rough on these ones, so give them a good sanding. And then I'm going to go in with the antique wax. Now the edges, you know, you paint on the antique wax and then wipe it off. And sorry, this whole thing is not in frame. I had some struggles when I was doing this. And I was doing the painting portion on each of these. It wasn't all totally in frame. But on the edges, when you wipe it off, it definitely stayed pretty thick. But the fronts of it, it kind of gave the look that I was expecting it. But it was okay with how I came out on the edges. And I think it's just because they were so raw and rough that it just absorbed it differently. So we're going to antique wax this whole thing. And then we're going to go ahead and embellish this one. And then I do have one more bonus one at the end that is not a wood one, but it's still a home decor. So I have these white stickers that I think were from Hobby Lobby on clearance, and then I showed you a little stencil that I had from Dollar Tree. You could use just stencils if you don't have stickers, but I'm just showing you what I'm using and trying to give you a variety of ideas. So I'm going to spell out home, and I'm not pushing the stickers all the way down because I wasn't sure if I was going to have to move them, and I did, and thankfully they moved pretty good on this antique wax, so that was not a problem. I'm pulling out the heart on this stencil and using that for the O, so I'm right now just figuring out placement, and then we're going to stencil with just some white Waverly chalk paint. The key is to not have too much paint on your little pouncer brush to make sure you don't have any bleed through, and it came out pretty good. I just had to move the letters a little bit once that was done, and so that's what I did. Then I have the stencil also from the Dollar Tree, and I don't want to use the writing in the middle of it. I just want to use the wreath, so we're taping that off, and then we're going to place that, and once again use some white paint to stencil on the little wreath above home. And like I said, you could do this with anything you wanted. You could do this whole stencil, do one of the wreaths with the writing on it. You could just use one of the word stencils from the last one. However you want to do that works. Now we're going to go to the other side and we're going to make this one all cutesy for Christmas. I have this stencil from the Dollar Tree from last year, I think. And I'm just going to try to tape this down. I'm trying to tape it, but there's not a lot of place for the tape to stick to the design underneath because there's so many stencils on it. So taped it best I could, and then I'm holding it down. And I'm just using some acrylic paint. I think they're actually both called Holiday Green and Holiday Red, but use whatever you've got. And I'm just using, once again, my pouncer brush, really trying to make sure I don't have too much paint on it, and being careful up here because I'm going to do the wreath green and the bow red. Very traditional. I like traditional when it comes to Christmas. It's just kind of my thing. And that's it for that side. Once again, we're going to give everything a coat of Mod Podge, and I'm going to show you at the very end how everything looks all finished. I'm going to show you both sides of everything, so just hang tight for that. Now this last one is not a wood house. This is something I picked up on clearance from Hobby Lobby. It was originally $17.99 and I picked it up when it was like under $2. It was $1.79 or $1.49, something like that. And I wanted to DIY it, so I kept my eye on it when it was on clearance and snagged it once it got that low. Once again, sorry this whole thing is not totally in frame. But I know that not everyone's going to have one of these, but I just wanted to give you some other ideas and just give you, if you find something at a thrift store or on clearance, that, there's different ways you can make it over. So I'm just going to give this a couple coats of paint. I'm using white Waverly chalk paint. Make sure that you let it dry in between coats. We're painting on metal here. So once I have a couple of coats and it's nice and dry, I'm going to sand down. I'm doing a lot of the edges and corners. I do a little bit on the flat parts, but I focus mainly on the edges and corners to just bring a little bit of that darker metal out, just to kind of, make it, to make it look a little bit older and not crisp and clean, and also because the paint didn't look all crisp and clean. This wasn't a flat piece. There was little dents in it and stuff. So rather than try to fight that, I just kind of embraced it. So painted it, sanded it. We're going to Mod Podge it just because I don't want the paint to chip off of this little metal house. And like I said, this is a metal house, so we are going to make a wreath, but this would be something that could be changeable, that you can just make different types of wreaths for. So right now I just chose this red berry garland from the Dollar Tree. If I had the orange one, I would have made a fall wreath, but I don't. So I'm going to just do this, but you could also use some like pretty greenery for like an everyday one, or you could use the Christmas greenery for a green Christmas wreath. Anyways, I wrapped it around, got the size I wanted, and just kind of twisted it around itself because it is actually a wire center. And then I'm pulling out one of these magnets from Dollar Tree, and I'm actually going to paint it because it's not going to fully be covered by the wreath. So I'm going to paint it and then Mod Podge it, which I didn't show you here. And I am hot gluing this on there, even though the wreath itself does have some metal in it. I wanted to make sure it stayed on. So here's a look at all of the houses. I just love how they came out. I like that they are reversible, and the big one, of course, is also just changeable with the wreath. And here is what the other sides look like. It'll be so fun to just tuck into decor, add on a tiered tray. You could style them together as a set, but so fun to work with.
Well, that's going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. I would love to have you join my little YouTube family. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out my future videos. There are more Christmas DIYs to come. I'm not saying it's only going to be Christmas from now until Christmas, but they are coming soon. And that's it. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.